Volunteers, arguably the lifeblood of this country and this county. Who are they? And what makes them give up their time for no financial reward?
It's a great chance for us to give something back to the community. It's really important to us that we support the communities in which we trade.
There's so many volunteer jobs out there, and not just jobs, it's just all sorts of areas you can help, in organisations. That there's just lots of opportunities.
I love volunteering for the RSPB, so really I'd recommend it to anyone. It's a great way to meet people and just gain your own skills really as well, so definitely go for it.
And it's really a beautiful thing just to know that you're making a difference in other people's lives.
I've got a good circle of friends anyway, but I've made even more, and I met my partner here as well, 3 years ago.
Keeps your body fit.
I've made lots of new friends, and my brain is still pretty well active, and it's keeping me going, which is great.
The satisfaction of, helping someone who's perhaps less fortunate than yourself.
You can volunteer for just about anything. To name a few things, working in a shop, a visitor centre, on a wildlife reserve, at an event.
This is called a One World Festival. It's a multicultural event, so all of our volunteers have met some wonderful people from all around the world today.
The vital ingredients that really make a volunteer are willingness and enthusiasm.
Volunteering, I just think it's brilliant because you get to spend the whole day outside. It's a little bit more leisurely than work, but it's still nice to feel like you're doing something useful.
Well, I was actually looking for a placement as part of my university degree, and the centre manager here was looking for a full-time volunteer, and I basically said I'll do it. It sounds brilliant. It's right on my doorstep. It's completely relevant to the degree I'm doing, and it seemed like a really good place to learn more about what I want to do, really.
So, volunteering is mutually beneficial to the individual and the organisation or company that encourages its staff to volunteer, like Waitrose in Dorchester.
But it's also really great for our partners to actually learn something new, something different from what they do in their everyday lives here in Branch. So to get out into community and learn something new is great for those.
It's always nice company to be out with a group of sort of similarly minded people. So.
Here are some typical reasons for volunteering.
I just wanted to sort of help, really, make a difference, I suppose. Sounds a bit, but that's basically why. I missed the interaction with people and helping and things, because the job I'm in now, I don't do that. So yeah, that was why.
I just moved a month back and I don't know anyone here and I don't have any friends, so I was just looking up online to see what are the things to do around here, and I came across the volunteer service. So then I thought, well, what better way to get to know people, to know what's happening in town, and to go and see places, and also to be of help to someone else and the society.
I suppose it's not having the stresses of work, isn't it? With work you've got really strict deadlines and all sorts of things like that, whereas here we're all here to enjoy ourselves.
For some people, volunteering is what they need to fulfil their lives. Very often we have, for example, locally retired individuals that come here and they want to become part of this valuable project, working with people with learning disabilities, giving supported work and putting something back into community. Like Phil.
There are other reasons too, and many volunteers are people who are no longer working.
We also have people who are newly retired or who have been out of work for quite a long time, and they've been looking at finding other ways of helping themselves to get up in the morning and feel more positive about their work-life balance.
So we have people of all ages from all different kinds of backgrounds. Some are retired like myself, some have had long-term unemployment for various reasons, and it's a way for some people to get back into work, and a way for people like myself who are retired to keep busy and active.
We'll hunt the wily mackerel through the wind and through the weather with the nets they call.
it was about what we give back to the community in terms of we volunteer our time to sing at community events, mostly on the island but also off the island, and I think that brings a huge amount of pleasure to us as participants, but also to the people who come and see us, and we give our services for free, so we're ideal volunteers.
Having taken the volunteer route, many people have found that it has unexpected rewards.
I've been doing this for about 6 months. My auntie does it, and she said that I should come along and try, and so I did, and I thought yeah, and then I thought about it, and then thought no, and then thought yeah, so I really liked it. It was really good, yeah. It's really good because it's good. I like it when it's rough. That's fun, yeah.
Well, my confidence has flourished. I feel a lot able to talk to people who aren't in my age range because I've just left school, so my days were probably filled with people of my own age range. So now working with people outside of work that I don't necessarily know or I don't know have mutual friends of, it's allowed me to find it easier to talk to them, to engage with them, work with them. So yeah, that's got to be the main point.
It certainly made me realise that working outdoors is definitely what I wanted to do. So and that's why I started up my own business, and yeah, and picking up slowly from there.
Volunteers are a very valuable asset to the organisations and charities that use them. The planned Jurassica project on Portland will be a case in point, making use of what's currently a derelict quarry.
Behind me is actually going to be the largest immersive environment in the world. So it'll be a fully recreated prehistoric environment focused on a very specific period in time, and it will contain living plants, these sort of living fossils, I suppose, of what the environment would have been like at the time. So yeah, that's all a few years down the line. So now what we're hoping is that we'll get volunteers who are very interested in the project to join us at this really early stage. We have a huge administrative amount of work to do. We've got a lot of fundraising to do, and we need volunteer support to make all of that happen.
A big part of what we do is we want to get people out onto the Ridgeway, learning more about it, just enjoying being out here. And so we are recruiting a lot of volunteers to do all sorts of things, from practical conservation to wildlife surveys, to looking at historical records. And we just want people to get involved and learn more about what's in their backyard and how fantastic it is.
There was, in June, I think, the Dorchester Art Week in Victoria Park. And the guy that first put me on to Dorset Volunteers, Rod Hall, suggested we use a few of the volunteers to help show some of our electric bikes. So we sponsored the event in the park. And they very kindly provided some youngsters, because much as I'd love to, I can't be there all the time. And similarly, if we've got 10 bikes sort of out for people to use in the park, it's nice to have someone to talk through the bikes and to act as some sort of security so people don't just disappear into the distance. So we use the volunteers there.
You can work in our visitor centre, serve people tea and coffee. You can go out on the reserve and count birds or count deer, or you can count change for us from our car parking machine. There's loads of different roles that you can do. We need people from all different backgrounds, all different ages to come and help us.
Among the multitude of volunteer opportunities are various community activities, aimed at being beneficial, for instance, for one's health and community spirit.
Firstly, we want to get them in actual sport, rowing, and once they're doing that, they feel the benefits of that. And then, of course, as we're a community sport, and it's all voluntary, all the work, and there's a lot of work involved on getting these boats together, organising what we're doing and that sort of thing, and we need people to sort of then step up and get involved in that side of life.
For people with learning disabilities or mental health problems, volunteering can be immensely beneficial to them and to the charities they volunteer for.
Yes, Zest Cafe is something of a lifeline for people with mental health issues because it provides that supportive environment where they can come and be with people without having to strain at interacting. And I think that's very important, and where they're not going to feel judged.
Certainly within the community resource team, Weymouth and Portland Community Resource Team, its recovery is a very important thing that we look upon, enabling individuals to actually recover from the mental health issues, problems that they've had over the years. Part of it is activity, enabling people to be active, to get out there and realise that they can do things out of the house, in the community, and feel a sense of fulfilment achieving this.
This is a way of them reconnecting with the nature as well, just getting them out doing things. Otherwise they'd just be sat at home doing nothing. It's getting used to being around people again, relearning living skills, that they've lost when they've become unwell.
It means everything to me. I love doing it, and I love to work in wildlife and work for Wildlife Trust, and I just think it's a fantastic job what they do. It's a lot, and I really enjoy it, and I like to come here every day and actually do it.
Volunteering can lead to paid work, so therefore has a lifespan beyond the spell of voluntary work.
With this as a stepping stone back to paid work, it gives everyone a chance to, because very often they're in a catch-22 where they need recent work experience to be considered for paid positions. So hopefully we're providing those opportunities for them to have a chance to get back into paid work if that's what they want to do.
Well, one of the main reasons actually to go into voluntary work is to help me look for employment, if I'm honest. But at the moment I'm a widow, so I'm not really pushed into going back into work. So I thought, well, the only option I can really do is voluntary work. And it's just given me the start of confidence and building up that I can think I can go back to work at some point. And the experience I'm going to gain just working in the voluntary centre to start with is immense. So I know it's going to start me in the step in the right direction where I need to go for employment as well. So hopefully in time, the right thing will come up and I'll be able to find work as well in future.
It's going to be great for my CV because I will be here for a whole year, and that'll be something that I'll have on top of my degree. I'll get a diploma out of this as well, so there'll be people who have my degree, but I'll have that on top of them.
There's been 7 different people over the last 3 years since we've been running who found themselves alternative employment or gained enough confidence to get out there and try for an apprenticeship.
And here are just 3 examples of how being a volunteer led to being an employee.
15 years ago I started as a volunteer over at Kingston Lacey while I was studying horticulture. Now I'm employed by the National Trust looking after 3 gardens for them. I look after Maxgate, Hardy's Cottage and Portland House.
Matt was a slightly unknown quantity to us. We were looking for somebody to help out on maternity leave for some cover. And Matt was one of the candidates who came forward, and on his CV he'd shown that he'd been with the Volunteer Bureau, and we obviously just had a chat with them about Matt, and they said what a dedicated person he'd been while he'd been there, what he'd been up to, and how well he worked in an office environment and his knowledge levels. And since he's been with us, he's proved that the experience he got whilst being a volunteer has really stood him in good stead.
Before I did voluntary work, I approached a recruitment agency. Obviously I was looking for admin work after completing a college course, but they said that I would have little chance of getting anything without any experience. So therefore I kind of looked into doing voluntary work in order to build up the experience which enabled me to get jobs after I've done that. Just made it just kind of easier to get the job, because obviously without that experience I probably wouldn't have stood a chance, kind of thing.
And when I was in that stage of thinking, what do I do next? How do you get work experience? How do you get work without the experience? This whole sort of conundrum that faces a lot of young people, I think. There was this lovely place in the distance just looking out of the window, and I came across and discovered Lawton Meadows, and that was my first contact with the Wildlife Trust. And that was the sort of beginning of it, really. That was the time when I found the trust, found a place where I could volunteer, gain that work experience, get that all-important experience under my belt, and then also be able to, I suppose, prove myself in a sort of professional capacity to be able to get into a good position when jobs became available. And that's pretty much the story of how my volunteering led to me working in conservation.
The Volunteer Centre is a one-stop shop for volunteers and organisations offering opportunities, but that's not all they do.
Okay, what we're able to provide organisations is that expertise and that help and support to enable them to set up their volunteering projects, to give them the good practice and the tools and the information and the guidance and training. So for example, one of the things we ask organisations to do when they attend one of our training events for managing volunteers and recruiting volunteers is to draw their ideal volunteer. It gets them thinking about the kinds of people they might need for their organisation. So, for example, this is one that was drawn a while ago. In an ideal world, this is what they might like all their volunteers to look like. And we're also able to provide quite a lot of support, enabling people who may have additional needs and help them find the right kind of volunteering that suits them.
And what of the organisations that look to the Volunteer Centre for help of different sorts?
Well, the Volunteer Centre have helped us right from the outset to develop into an active volunteering hub for the local community. So from the outset they brought potential volunteers out to see the work that we're doing, and introduce new volunteers to us, and then ongoing, they've been very supportive in helping us keep up to date with our DBS checks and on any sort of help and advice we've needed in terms of our relationships with our volunteers.
But we also require funding for tools and replacement things which we can't necessarily get for ourselves. And so when we go along to Volunteer Centre, they have the links or the contacts, if you like, for us to approach and show us the ways to do it, which can be done.
We also had a look at the website based at Dorchester, and maintained our name on the list, so that other people who were seeking out different types of placement or volunteering opportunities, they came along via that website.
And very often we're finding that volunteers themselves need additional support, and they need to come here for supported work in their own right. So looking forward to the future, one of our big tasks really is to find funding for people to come here to volunteer that would not normally fit into that volunteer category, in as much as they may be less able than other volunteers. But we're mindful that we want to be here for the community and to provide that supported work for everyone that wants to work here and be part of the project.
And the centre can help with that sort of issue as well.
When I saw online there was an advertisement about the Buddy program. The Buddy program. So when I came over here and I spoke to Shivban and I asked her about the Buddy program, what exactly it is. So it's like we assist volunteers with learning disabilities, to carry on with their volunteering activities. So I said, well, that's perfect. I would love to do that. And I met Michael Taylor. I think he's my first volunteer. So I'm going to be working along with him and helping him in his volunteering activities. So that's what I'm starting off with.
Finally, what do volunteers mean to a wide range of the organisations who rely on them? For them, the presence of people who give freely of their time at all times is absolutely vital.
We couldn't run the RSPB without volunteers, and the organisation was originally founded by volunteers in 1889, I think it was.
The value of volunteers is we just couldn't run this garden at all without them.
Lifeblood in every sense. I mean, just from the various different angles, obviously in terms of producing results on the ground, it's tremendously important for us to be able to see these real conservation gains in terms of bodies on the ground making the work happen, but also in terms of the culture and the sort of, I suppose, the keeping the organisation young. I don't mean that necessarily because young people, though young people are a really core part of our volunteer work, but I also mean new ideas coming through, different people with different experiences, people who've had careers in other things, bringing their take on what we do to the table. It's tremendously refreshing, and it keeps us refreshed, definitely. Really important. Without volunteers, the Wildlife Trust would be a shadow of itself.
So, whatever your skills, your experience, or your backgrounds, there'll be a volunteer role for you.
There's always a need for people to help out and participate and engage in their community and to help others.